Welcome my friends to this, the very third video that I've made. Again, we're talking about Kill Team, but whereas last time we did the broadest possible overview, talking about all of the Kill Team factions summarized in 20 seconds or less, or indeed in one word, this time it's going to be exactly the opposite, super granular, an extremely detailed question. Which weapon for the Kroot Kill-Broker? Now, if you like this video, then congratulations. Quite possibly you have autism. Well done. But also, if you like this video, please like this video. That would be very helpful. And subscribe to the channel that it's on. Also, feedback very much appreciated. Do you like this kind of content, or is it too autistic? Let's get on with it. So the question we're looking at, as you can see, in your operative selection for the Farstalker Kim band, your leader, the Killbroker, can have either a Kroot rifle and a ritual blade, or a pulse weapon and a ritual blade. Stats are as you can see. The rifle has 4 attacks hitting on 3s, doing 3 and 4 damage. The pulse weapon has 4 attacks hitting on 4s, doing 4 and 5 damage. Now, if we look at the average base damage, here's what we find. 0, 0. Then 3s to hit kicks in, 3, 3, 3, and then on a critical hit you get 4. Now when you add those up and divide by 6 to get the average, what do you get? You get 2 and a 1/6. So average damage, average base damage, that is before defense or anything else, on 1d6 with this weapon is 2 and a 1/6. Pulse weapon will do the same thing. 1, 0 because it misses. 2, 0 because it misses. 3, 0 because it misses. On a 4 you get 4, on a 5 you get 4, and on a 6 you get 5 for the critical. We'll do the same thing. Add it all up, divide it by 6, exactly the same. 2 and 1/6. By the way, I'm working with fractions. I just find that much easier when you're handling this kind of thing than percentages. So far, it seems it's a bit of a wash. They do exactly the same. So what can we even discuss to make this decision? Maybe it doesn't matter. No, it matters. First of all, we'll have a look at skew. In terms of the chance of missing completely, when you have 4 attacks on a 3+, the chance that the Kroot rifle is going to miss completely is 1 in 81. That's very unlikely. Now, for the pulse weapon, it's just 1 in 16. And that still means that in any given game, probably won't happen. But it's still dramatically more likely than 1 in 81. In other words, if you play 4 games, shoot every turning point, you can expect 1 complete whiff with the pulse weapon, and that's not the case for the Kroot rifle. That would seem to indicate Kroot rifle, but then we can look at maximum damage output. Now, if every die gets a normal hit, the rifle does 12, the pulse does 16. If you get 4 critical hits, which is very unlikely, it's 1 in 1,296. The Kroot rifle does 16. The pulse weapon does 20. And so you end up, if every die gets at least a normal success, the rifle is doing 12 to 16, and the pulse weapon is doing 16 to 20. So in terms of skew, that is, we could say, the chance of getting nothing versus the benefit to you, the damage done, if you roll really well. You know the extremes, the tail and the head of the graph, if you're at all into statistics. The pulse weapon has better extremes. It's more likely to go completely wrong, but when things go very well, it will do more damage. So, I mean, you can see if you get super lucky, if you get your 1 in 1,296, you can one-shot this very beefy indeed operative from the Gellerpox infected. This may mean you might want to choose the pulse weapon if you're fighting someone with very beefy operatives. You'll get a better chance of one-shotting them. Whereas it might be overkill against your standard squishies, which have a 5+ save and 7 wounds. But we're not just considering skew. We now have to factor in defense. And we'll do some number crunching, but also we're going to do a bit of logic, a bit of reasoning. Now, almost every armor save you're going to meet is going to be at least 5+. I don't recall offhand if anything in the whole game has a 6+ native. I don't think so. And if anything did, you know what? It would be a Gellerpox-infected curse mite, one of their little critters that they have. And let me actually just look it up right now. And if the Gellerpox-infected don't have one with a 6+ save, then I'm going to go ahead and say nobody does. Oh, no, they do. The glitchlings have 6+ saves. So do the curse mites. Okay, the Gellerpox-infected little critters have 6+ saves. So someone does, but it's very rare. The little critters in Gellerpox-infected aren't even most of the Gellerpox-infected. Almost every save you're going to meet is going to be at least a 5+. Neither weapon has piercing. Now, with 3 dice, the chance of failing a 5+ on all 3 is just 8 in 27. In percentages, that would be roughly 70% chance of getting at least one success. Now, interaction with defense dice, it's dynamic. It depends on meta. In other words, how you evaluate these weapons in terms of getting through armor depends on who's playing what in the arena you like to play in. Maybe you're facing lots of Space Marines. Maybe you're facing lots of glitchlings. But we can reason like this. Since almost everything will be saving on 5+ or better, and since 5+ or better usually gets at least one save, 90% of the shots we take are going to be blocked at least once. At least once. We haven't even talked about cover saves yet. So using this quite reasonable assumption, okay, in defense, the pulse weapon is going to hit less, but it does more damage with each hit. This is where our logic comes in, our reasoning. Pulse weapon hits less, but it does more damage with each hit. That is, the damage it does is concentrated into fewer hits. Therefore, blocking one hit prevents more damage from the pulse weapon than it does from the Kroot rifle. So the pulse weapon is more affected by your opponent's defense dice. So, right here, I showed you an example of someone with 20 wounds and a 5+ save, 21 wounds and a 4+ save. Because it's more affected by defense dice, the one with the 20 wounds and the 5+ save is going to be a better target. Something like a Plague Marine, I deliberately haven't put there, his 3+ save is really going to monkey with the pulse weapon's damage output. But now it's time to crunch numbers. I'm using here 24 dice. I'm saying maybe they're not even necessarily in the same game. I'm just using 24 dice because it's a really convenient number for getting the average outcomes that we're looking for. Now, we're losing the Kroot rifle. 1s and 2s, they just miss. They do nothing. 3s to 5s, they get a normal hit each. And then the 6s get crits. I realize, by the way, me using those 2 lightning symbols makes it look as if it's doing double damage. Please just remember, it's not. That's my mistake. But we're too far in now for me to bother to go back. The 2 lightnings is not double damage. That's a critical hit, which in this case just does 1 more, going up from 3 to 4. Your defense dice, normal successes on 5s, critical successes on 6s. Now let's see what that does to damage output. The 3 normal successes block 3 normal successes. The 3 critical successes block 3 critical successes. So over the course of throwing 24 dice into the Kroot rifle, we get 31 damage. Now we're going to throw the same number of dice into attacking with the pulse weapon against the same 5-up defense. So, okay, 1s to 3s, they all miss. 4s to 5s, they get normal hits. 6s get critical hits. Let's see what happens now. The rifle, we remember, did 31 damage when we added it all up, and I'll just work through it so that you definitely believe me. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. There, sorry, there were actually more. I won't work it out. It was 31, trust me. No, I will. Let's go back. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. 3, 3, 3, 3. We've got 9 threes. 9 normal hits doing 3 each. 9 normal hits doing 3 each time. So 9 times 3 is 27. Plus the 4 for the critical is 31. 31 damage after defense dice. Now with our pulse weapon, before the defense dice, it's whatever this is, doesn't matter because we're looking at it after defense dice. We block 3 normals and 3 criticals. Now let's add it up. We've got 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 5 is 25. So even against the measly 5+ save, which almost everything, which you will almost always meet, and many things do better, the rifle is now clearly doing more damage per dice that you put into it. Now, we don't need to crunch any numbers for saves that are better than 4+. Having already established that 5+ is better like this. There are also cover saves and rerolls and all of that that we don't necessarily need to look at, having already established that the rifle is doing better on a 5+. Let's just observe that even on a 6+ save, the rifle still has better average damage output. I'm not going to talk you through all the math. You can work that out at home if you like. But really against any save, the rifle is doing better once you take into account defense dice. So far, this is looking very good for the Kroot rifle and not good for the pulse weapon. But maybe there's some other factors that are going to influence us. Interactions with other things. We can't just look at these weapons in isolation and compare them. So for example, piercing shot. Once per turning point, when a friendly fast-talker Kimband operative is performing the shoot action and you select a Kroot rifle, Kroot scattergun, or dual Kroot pistols, focused, you can use this rule. If you do, until the end of that action, that weapon has the piercing 1 weapon rule. Now piercing is very good, but even if piercing wasn't very good, you can only use this with the Kroot rifle. And similarly, the toxin shot, which gives you lethal 5+ and stun, only works with the Kroot rifle. Now, although you can only use this once per turning point across your whole team, except that your basic Kroot warrior gets an extra one, these are quite strong. Piercing is good. Lethal's all right, but stun is very good. Stun can save your bacon sometimes. It can put the opponent in the position of having to, instead of do the objective and take a shot, do the objective or take a shot. This is clearly favoring the Kroot rifle even more than we were already favoring the Kroot rifle, because you can't take this with the pulse weapon. Now, on the other hand, though, we have some powers from the Kroot Kill-Broker himself that make it quite easy to get him accurate. We also have Prey, which enables you to get balanced and severe. We also have Vengeance for the Kimband, which lets you get relentless. Now, it's possible that these things will be better for one weapon than the other. And to do that, to sort out whether they are, we'll have to crunch some numbers. Now, let's look at accurate first. What accurate does, you can retain up to X attack dice as normal successes without rolling them. So that's going to be good for the less accurate weapon. That's just simple logic. Since you cannot roll the dice, the less likely you were to get the hit by rolling it, the better accurate is. It's also good for the weapon that does more damage per shot, as just about any ability would be. It's also good for weapons with relatively weak crits, but that's not really relevant here. There's no devastating we're taking into account. So when you give them accurate, before taking into account defense dice, the Kroot rifle is doing 54, and the pulse weapon is doing 63. So it does look like accurate is, as we would predict, better for the pulse weapon. As we would predict, because the pulse weapon is less accurate. It hits on 4s. But now we have to factor in defense dice. Now on a 6+, the Kroot rifle. Now, as you can see here, I've got the two numbers separated by a slash. The first one is the damage after defense dice for the Kroot rifle. The second one is the damage after defense dice for the pulse weapon. So on a 6+ save, against a 6+ save, the Kroot rifle with accurate does 42, and the pulse weapon is doing 48. Against a 5+ save, it's 33 for the rifle, 36 for the pulse. 4+ save, they're equal, and to get the Kroot rifle back to having an advantage, you need to be against at least a 3+ save. So accurate, the fact that you can get accurate quite easily for the fast stalkers, does point you more in the direction of the pulse weapon. But I have to point out, the advantage here is not huge, and it disappears at 4+, and reverses at 3+. And 3+ is quite common. A lot of people like Space Marines. A lot of people like Loyalist Space Marines. A lot of people like Chaos Space Marines. So here we go. I mean, I've got these crosses here so you can see how the math works out. If you want to, you can pause and count my lightning bolts. So with balanced, what balanced does, you can re-roll one of your attack dice. To evaluate this, we need the chance of converting a miss into a hit and the value of a hit. We can't use the same type of table as before because the dice are being thrown in groups of 4. That is, if you hit with everything, balance doesn't do you any good. We can't just look at 24 dice and deal with averages. The fact that these 4 might all hit and these 4 might all miss actually makes a difference. That is, in one turn, you might miss with everything. Okay, I think I've made that point. I'll stop belaboring it. Now, the chance of at least one miss with a rifle is 65 in 81. The chance with at least one miss with the pulse weapon is 15 in 16. So you're much more likely to get the miss with the pulse weapon. This is looking again like something that's more likely to favor the pulse weapon. The average value of a reroll, to be clear, it actually has 2 components inside it. The average value of a reroll is made of the chance you're going to get the hit and the damage that the hit is going to do. In other words, the average damage on 1d6, such as we already did at the beginning. Just like that. The average value of a reroll is identical for both 2 and a 6th, 2 and a 6th. So, we already know you're more likely to get at least one miss with the pulse weapon. No surprise, the average value of balanced is greater for the pulse weapon. 1 and it's doing you 2 and 1/32 of a damage in a 4 dice shot. Whereas for the rifle, just this very complicated fraction, which I did not do in my head. So now we've got 2 points in favor of the pulse weapon, kind of being shifted a bit. Now severe, we're just going to use fairly pure logic. If you don't retain any critical successes, you can change one of your normal successes to a critical success. Now the chance for each weapon to get no crits is identical because the critical is the 6+. Although, I suppose you could use that ability with the Kroot rifle to give it lethal 5+, but we'll ignore that for now. The rifle that has, however, a better chance of at least one normal success, and you need both a normal success and a critical success, at least one of each. Sorry, you need at least one normal success to take advantage of this. So that advantage is the rifle, but the pulse weapon's critical hit does a bit more damage, but a crit is not only more damaging, but also harder to defend against, because only a critical defense can block a critical success. What really matters here is the fact that severe is more likely to get you a critical hit with the rifle. I'll go through the whole chain again in case I didn't express that so well. In fact, perhaps it would work better if we do it backwards. 1. The critical hit doesn't just do more damage, it also is harder to defend against. So it's not just that you get 1 extra damage, you're more likely to get all your damage through because it can only be blocked with the critical defense. But to use Severe, you need not only to get no crits, but you need to get 1 normal success, and the rifle is more likely to do that. So Severe is pushing it back towards the Kroot rifle. We should also look at interactions with stuff that other teams have. So the Gellerpox have this rule, Revoltingly Resilient. Whenever an attack dice inflicts damage of 3 or more, roll a d6. On a 5+, subtract 1. That actually favors the rifle because every dice from the rifle, that favors the pulse weapon because every dice from the rifle is doing 3 or more. Because that is spread out over more hits, that is more d6s to roll and potentially get a 5+ on. I would say, though, that a 5+ chance to reduce 1 isn't going to do enough damage, isn't going to save enough damage to shift all the math we've done earlier very much. The shield generator, once per turning point, when an attack dice inflicts normal damage on this operative, you can ignore that inflicted damage. I'd say that seems to me to favor the rifle, perhaps very slightly, because 1 dice from the pulse weapon is doing more damage. So the shield generator saves more against the rifle, against the pulse weapon. I could be wrong, though, because also the rifle is more likely to hit. Maybe that's a wash. The Cabalite Flare is another example of someone who takes less damage from attacks that do a particularly large amount of damage, 3 or more in this case. Those things exist, and they do push it a bit more towards the pulse weapon, but I must say, this kind of ability, it's not tremendously common. Conclusion, Kroot rifle. I would say pretty clearly the Kroot rifle is better. Although there are edge cases and certain abilities that will push us more towards the pulse weapon, if you're building an all-comers list, the Kroot rifle is going to give you much more consistent damage output than the pulse weapon. With, however, the proviso that if you know that you are fighting against, say, a Genestealer Patriarch, something with a lot of wounds, but not a very good armor save, then you might want the pulse weapon. If that is so, if you're building to assassinate some particularly high wound, low armor operative, consider the pulse weapon. If you're not sure because you're going to a tournament, take the Kroot rifle. That is my conclusion. Incidentally, if you like and subscribe, Zinch will favor you with as many 6s as you want. So please like and subscribe. Also, tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for listening, my autistic friends. Bye-bye.